Today marks exactly 3 weeks until Election Day, marking a crucial time for both the Trump and Biden campaigns. A new report is highlighting this. With just weeks to go, Trump is not making up ground. Sabato's crystal ball says Joe Biden's lead in polling has widened, and President Trump needs to make up ground instead of falling further behind. For more on this, I want to bring in Kyle Kondik. He is the managing editor of Sabato's Crystal Ball from the University of Virginia's Center for Politics. Welcome, Kyle. Great to have you with us. So, several polls showing Joe Biden leading President Trump. Why do you think that Joe Biden is leading Mr. Trump so significantly in some places, and Trump is not being able to make up that ground?
Look, I think that Joe Biden has had a pretty steady lead in this race. Sometimes it's bigger, sometimes it's a little bit smaller. It seems like since the first debate and the president's COVID-19 diagnosis that Biden's lead's gotten a little bit bigger, particularly in the national polls. He's now up to a lead of on average about 10 points in both the Real Clear Politics and 538 averages. Again, some polls are a little higher than that, some polls are a little lower than that, but I think most of the numbers are telling a pretty consistent story that the president has lost a little bit of ground since the first debate. Now, sometimes what we see in this race is that when Biden's lead expands out a little bit, it'll contract back. Although, we are a couple of weeks past the debate, and Biden's lead still seems pretty steady. And we have this. I think we've been asked this question ever since Trump sort of emerged in the political scene, 5 years ago, in that, something happens and you think, well, does this hurt him? And the answer often is no. But at this point, we're so close to the election and Trump's so behind that you have to start asking, when a news development happens, will this actually help the president? Because he needs help to overcome the kind of deficit that he has right now.
Well, let's talk about what might help him. What are some of the things the Trump campaign could do in these crucial last weeks to try and gain back some of this lost ground?
I think they need to figure out ways to try to put more of the emphasis in terms of news coverage on Joe Biden. I think that one of the reasons that Trump won in 2016 is that Hillary Clinton was sort of more of the focus down the stretch of that campaign. The debates ended almost 3 weeks before Election Day in 2016, and some of the late-breaking developments in the 2016 race, particularly the Jim Comey letter about Clinton's emails. I think just that the way the race ended was kind of bad for Clinton, and it caught her at kind of a lower point. Are there ways for Trump to put more of an emphasis on Biden and to try to make the election more of a choice between Trump and Biden as opposed to a referendum on Trump? Trump dominates the news so much that it kind of inherently kind of contributes to this referendum idea, and with the president's approval generally being lower than his disapproval, and what the polls are saying right now, the president is probably not well served by drawing so much attention to himself as opposed to putting more of a spotlight on Biden.
So, as you know, the second presidential debate was supposed to be held Thursday. It was canceled after President Trump refused to participate in a virtual debate. Considering the millions of people who watched the first debate and the millions of people who have already voted, will more debating change many minds at this point?
Look, you can never rule anything out, but I think it's worth noting that on the road to the election, there are several big events that we see: the selection of the vice presidential candidates, the two-party conventions, even though that they were done virtually this year, and then also the debates. I don't think you could point to any of those big picture events as really changing the race in significant ways. I think it's possible the president got a little bit of a bump out of his debate, although that wasn't enough to make this a tied race. And then I think now Biden got a little bit of a bump out of the first debate that doesn't seem to really have dissipated all that much. Again, you never know what the final debate, if in fact it happens 9 days from now, would do to the contest. But as it's been, this has been a really pretty steady race.
Mm-hmm. So as we near Election Day, what are the key states the Trump campaign has to closely watch?
Well, look, I think winning Florida and Ohio and North Carolina and Georgia and Iowa, all states that the president won last time that I think we view as basically toss-ups. I think the president has to win all those states. And then it's a question as to whether he could pick up, win, say, Arizona and Pennsylvania again. The Trump campaign does not seem to be focusing as much on the upper Midwest, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Minnesota. The president could afford to lose all three of those states, but he needs to essentially win kind of the rest of the competitive states that I talked about. That seems to be where the focus of the campaign is. Pennsylvania is, it's the Keystone State. It's also maybe the Keystone state of this election. Biden continues to lead in that state. But that, if the president's going to make a comeback, it might be Pennsylvania that would ultimately deliver him that comeback.
All right. Well, Kyle Kondik, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you.